Hello, everybody. My name is Ashley Hawthorne, and I'm going to be doing the WriteHive 2024 presentation over writing and motherhood, balancing it all, and what to do when you can't. I am a two-time published romantic suspense author with two more books coming up in the next couple of years. I am a homeschooling mom who has raised two teenagers, one of whom is now legally an adult and getting ready to graduate from high school. So I've successfully raised one kid, and my youngest is 14, so she is also almost completely finished. I plan for them to live at home for a little bit longer than that, so I'm not entirely done, but the real responsibility part of it on my part is kind of coming to an end. So I consider myself to have been able to, be pretty successful at both of these tasks, and getting done at least the most important parts of both of them. Um, I'm hoping that if you find yourself here because you kind of feel like you're struggling with that balance and maybe you're not doing as good of a job of achieving both of these things as you would like, that you find at least some of this stuff to be helpful stuff that you can apply to your life. When I signed up to do this, I was really kind of hoping that they would put me on a panel with other authors so that I could just kind of chip into the conversation when I had something that I felt was really worth saying. But there was a spot for doing solo presentations, and I was like, hey, you're going to miss all of the shots you don't take. So, sign up to do a talk about something that you know. And being a stay at home homeschooling mom for 18 years, the only thing that I know is mom stuff. I didn't actually think they were going to say yes to this. And I was a little bit nervous because every mom's motherhood is different. Everybody faces different challenges. Some of the things that people said that they would really like to hear me talk about is stuff that I actually don't know a whole lot about. So I've never had to work a full-time job and be a writer and be a parent. And I know that that's a really common scenario that a lot of other moms that are trying to be writers are all dealing with. I've also never had to deal with unsupportive friends and family, those kinds of things. And I was like, I don't know if I'm the best person actually to even be giving this talk because there's so many things, so many challenges that you guys might be facing that I personally have never faced. So when I designed this presentation, I wanted to make it so that I could focus on more big picture things that you could adapt to your own specific circumstances than trying to solve everybody's individual unique struggles. So if you have something unique, um, or you want to ask, about like, hey, you said you use a system to do this. Can you, do you have advice on, what routine you use or those kinds of things? You can ask that at the Q&A at the end, and I may have more specific suggestions for you. And if I don't, I may have ideas for where you can look to find them. I'm not going to make any promises, but definitely as this stuff comes up, if you have things that you look at the bigger picture stuff that I'm talking about and wonder how you can apply it to your specific circumstances, please ask. I may not have the answers, but I'm certainly going to try. I have broken this presentation down into three pretty broad categories that we're going to talk about. Those here, we've got number one is going to be giving ourselves grace. I want to talk first about how we can let go of that chase for perfectionism and the guilt that we carry around for not being able to do everything, not doing it right all the time. Because I think that that's really important before we get into looking at how we can create solutions for the areas that we're struggling with, that we go into it with an attitude of looking for improvement rather than perfection. So we're going to talk about that first. And then the second part, we're going to look at what more actual like solutions, or at least areas that we can focus on when we're looking for our individual solutions. What kind of things we can focus on when we're searching for ways that we can maximize our efficiency or the uses of our time, or make things so that the systems that we have in place are working for us rather than against us this time. And then the third section is going to be where we're going to be looking at areas where we can start to work on things now in the hopes of long-term payoff later, changes in our attitudes, or areas that we can invest in now that will help to improve our lives and things as we go along. Section 2, I feel like, is more stuff you would start to see improvement on more quickly, so maybe not immediately, but definitely more quickly, whereas 3 is going to be sort of like long-term investment kind of. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the section over giving ourselves grace and accepting our limitations. If you're anything like me and you are a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist, this section is definitely going to be for you. I have always had a really hard time accepting the idea that I can't do everything, or that I'm not going to be able to do things that I want to do perfectly. I don't know if it's just me and the generation of women that I grew up with. I know as an older millennial that a lot of us really kind of had the expectation that we could do anything we wanted to, kind of drummed into us as young women. And when me and my friends got to the age where we started having children and careers, we used to laugh about it because they said you can do anything, and we took that and internalized it as you can do everything. And really, those are two very, very different things, right? You can do anything. You have the choice of what you would like to do. Nobody's telling you that you can't be a writer or you can't be a parent or you can't have a career, but nobody also said that you would be able to do all of those things as though you aren't doing any of the others. It seems to be an expectation, especially for moms, that we can work like we don't have kids and parent like we don't have a job. And unfortunately, that just it doesn't work. And when we are forced to kind of confront the fact that this isn't working for us, a lot of us get kind of angry about that. I do. I get angry when I realize that there are limitations. There are things that I can't do. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the resources. I get really significantly upset about that sometimes. And I want to look at how we got that kind of idea in our heads that that's something that we're supposed to be able to do, and to kind of push back a little bit at some of those myths and see how they don't stand up logically, and how we can kind of start to maybe purge that from our thinking so that we can have a healthier relationship with productivity. So I want to take a look at three pretty pervasive myths that I think have really contributed to this idea that we have that we need to be perfect and that we can do everything and do everything well, so that we can kind of challenge those ideas in ourselves. The first of which is the idea that we just need to try harder. If we just had more focus, if we just paid more attention to stuff, if we were just willing to devote our time and energy to the things that we're trying to do, that we could do stuff. This is where you get the idea that if you just slept less or watched less TV or spent less time on your phone, that you too could have that sort of perfect life. And we get this a lot because we pick up a self-help book or we watch a motivational video, and that's what they tell us, right? If you just put more effort into your budget or the gym or your house or your kids or your relationship, that it would be absolutely perfect. It would be completely smooth sailing. You'd be able to eliminate all of those challenges that you have in that area. But when we look at this a little bit closer, all of those people who are experts and really, really good at that specific area are telling you that they got so good at that area, at that particular aspect of their lives, by devoting a very significant amount of time, effort, and attention to that area, right? Which is great for them because that's an important area of their lives, one that they feel comfortable investing in. But they aren't heavily investing that way in every single area of their lives because it's simply just not possible. You can't give 100% of your effort to every aspect. You have 100% of effort available to give, and then you have to decide how you're going to cut that up, what pieces of the pie you're going to give a certain amount of effort, energy, and attention to, right? So for most of us, we've experienced that time when our children are very, very small, and they get a really significant amount of that 100% of effort to the expense of other areas where, maybe our house isn't so clean. Maybe we're not spending so much time with our spouse. Maybe we're not really like changing out of our pajamas every day, because that's just not an area that matters at that point enough that we can give a big chunk to it. And I need you to know that that's okay. If you're sitting here and you're watching this and you're in your pajamas because, getting dressed today is just not the thing you want to be spending your time and attention on, I need you to know it's okay to have those areas that you're not giving your full devotion to. It's okay to prioritize things and know what's important to you and let some of the other stuff slide. And we're going to talk about that more when we get to the area of prioritization. But please know, you are not going to have a picture perfect Instagram life in every single area that you have. It's not possible to achieve, nor is it something that you should try to do because you're going to run yourself into the ground. Myth number two that they really like to weaponize and use against people is telling us that we have the same 24 hours in our day as, catch whatever flavor of celebrity of the week. And I'm here to tell you that you simply do not. You have a certain number of 24 hours to exist. That is correct. But you have to use your 24 hours to do a very different set of things than people like Beyonce or Bill Gates, right? Because you are making your own meals, cleaning your own bathroom, fixing your own washing machine, doing your own laundry. And I promise you that these famous people with all of this money are not doing all those things for themselves. And the things that they are doing for themselves are the things that they personally chose to do, probably because they really enjoy it, or it's something that's necessary for them to be able to maintain that kind of lifestyle. So Beyonce is not fixing her washing machine. She's making music videos. She's spending quality time with her family. She's eating meals that more, probably cooked by somebody else. Bill Gates is not doing his own car mechanics. He's not mowing his own grass. They hire people to manage their lives, keep track of their schedules, deal with all of the necessary but kind of unpleasant chores that go into maintaining homes and cars and foods and all those kinds of things. They are running on their 24 hours, and then the 24 hours of the people around them they are paying in order to receive certain hours of their days as well towards maintaining this whole thing that they have going on. You have to do the necessary and unpleasant maintenance work yourself in most cases, and that is making a really big difference on how much time you can spend doing the sorts of productivity that people want you to have, right? That creative output or spending time with your kids or, those sort of visual things. It cuts into your time. There's no reason for you to feel guilty that you can't spend all of your time, writing or editing or doing any of those things towards your creative stuff because you have a full life of demands and responsibilities that there's nobody to take care of except for you. Um, and the last of the myths that we're going to look at is this idea that what you see on social media is real. And I struggle with this one. I know we know it's real in the sense of yes, those are real people, and yes, those are real houses, and yes, those are probably their real kids. But we aren't seeing all the things that go on behind the scenes to make that possible. We're not seeing the influencers that have a house cleaner come in to clean before they do their cleaning videos. We're not seeing the fact that, this kitchen counter that they're making a beautiful meal on and then just off screen is a sink full of dirty dishes. We're not seeing their downtimes, we're not seeing their hard days, we're not seeing the goals they didn't achieve. And with ourselves, we see all of those things. We see all of the hard stuff, we see all of the ugly stuff, we see every difficult moment. So when we look at another mom or we look at another writer and we see their achievements and the things that they're proud of and their shining moments, and we compare that to the real kind of mixed things that we have going on in our own lives where yeah sure, I mean we do have those things. We also have those crying in the shower days or the sick kid days or the I missed a work deadline because life kind of got away from me days. That's normal and it's okay, and we have to let go of this idea that those people are better or more worthy of love or more worthy of success than what we are because we know the areas in which we struggle. I promise you, they also have areas in which they struggle. It's just not as visible to you. So remember that when you see those people's highlights, when you're enjoying the celebrations of their successes, that they celebrate with you and they struggle behind closed doors. Okay, so we covered this a little bit, but I do want to go over again the reason that this matters and the reason that we did this part of the presentation before we did anything that's more solution oriented is because I want us to go into the solution part of the presentation, keeping in mind that the things that we're talking about are not going to get us to perfection. We're not looking for a routine or a system or a planner or any of those other things that's going to give us the perfect balance between parenting and writing. It's not going to give us the perfect balance between cleaning and spending quality time with our kids. It's just meant to make things easier. It's to help take some of the pressure off. It's to make it so that you have more time to do the things that you want to do so that you're better able to enjoy your successes because you're maybe not struggling so much. So I want you to go into the solutions part of the presentation, if you can, more with an attitude of curiosity. Even if you've already done some of the stuff, you've already tried some of it, maybe try it again with a little bit of a different mindset that, hey, I'm not aiming for this to solve my whole life. I'm only aiming for this to maybe take some of the pressure off of dinner time or to make my writing process a little bit smoother and a little bit less stressful for me. Those kinds of things, okay? We're not aiming for perfect. We just want to keep an open mind, be curious about things that we might be able to do that can improve our lives a little bit so that we can create a little bit more space for ourselves to enjoy our parenthood journeys and our writing journeys. All right, and that is actually going to bring us to the second part of this presentation. We're actually going to talk about how we can look for some solutions for ourselves so that we can create an environment where we are thriving, our children are thriving, our writing careers are doing, well as we can. Some of that stuff's a little bit beyond our control. We want to make sure the parts that are under our control that we are thriving with the systems that we have created for ourselves. We want to be able to take care of ourselves because that's an extremely important part of the process, is to show up with your best self every day. We're going to talk about how to do that also. So now that we are letting go of our guilt, let's work about how we can make ourselves the best that we possibly can. Okay, so most of the meat of our presentation is actually going to be in this area of, how can we do our best? What can we do to, maximize our efficiency make sure that we're focusing on the things that we want to be focusing on so our lives don't feel so out of control, right? So in order to do that, we're going to cover 4 different areas, right? We're going to figure out how to prioritize so that we can make sure we're doing the most important things with our limited resources. We're going to learn how to organize, which means we're going to organize our physical things. We're also going to organize our processes, and our emotions. We're going to say no to things that don't serve us, and get rid of that kind of stuff. Keep only what works, lose what doesn't. We're going to delegate. We're going to do learn how to ask or borrow or buy help and assistance with stuff that we are struggling with, because that's going to be important. You're not be able to get help with every area, but it's better than nothing. And then lastly, again, we're going to look at that self-care stuff, because you showing up as your best self is going to be the best way that you can make sure that you are maximizing the attention that you give to everything else in your life, especially your kids. I know you think you're doing them a favor by putting them first in all things, but when mom doesn't show up well rested and well taken care of, you're giving them, your crankiest, most tired, most run down self, and that's not actually as helpful to them as you may be thinking that it is. So the first part of this doing our best thing is going to be learning how to prioritize. And honestly, this one is one I think people struggle with a lot, because you want your prioritization to be, doing the most important things and then working it all the way down to the things that you do kind of like, at the end of the day. But the goal for a lot of us is still to make sure that we finish that entire to-do list. And for most of us, especially if you're including like those big wish list things, it's not going to happen. Prioritization means that we learn to do the vital things first, so that when we don't make it to the stuff at the end of the to-do list, it's okay. We don't have to feel so guilty about missing out on an urgent, time sensitive item that's going to have big consequences, because we got that stuff done first. And then we fill in the rest of the time that we have available with the rest of our resources, our energy, our money, that kind of stuff, with things that it's nice to get done, but the world's not going to fall apart if you don't. If you start with those, those middle things or things at the bottom, and then you run out of time and resources before you get to the most important things, you're really going to feel those negative consequences. And we don't want that. We want to take the most important things first, get those things done. And that really helps with this if you do struggle with guilt from not getting the entirety of your to-do list done at any given time, because those big important things that other people are counting on you for, whether that's your job, your writing stuff, or your kids needing you to be there for something, or your spouse, those people that depend on you, you're going to have done that stuff. You're going to have taken care of that stuff already. You're not going to have people who are going to be disappointed. You're not going to have hurt anybody's feelings. And that really helps with not feeling that sort of guilt over not getting everything done, because the stuff that doesn't get done is stuff that's really just kind of, it's a lot easier to smooth over. It's a lot easier to say, hey, I can get to that stuff tomorrow, and it just not be a big deal. So having a good sense of what matters to you is really important. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, because I know we do struggle with, how do I prioritize? What is a priority? And how am I supposed to know, when looking at all these demands on my life and my time, what things I should be focusing on? And this is a story that helped me a lot when I had really small children, and I was really glad when I started kind of looking forward to do this presentation that I was able to actually kind of track down the source of this to Nora Roberts, which makes it perfect for a writing convention. But when I was first learning how to prioritize, I heard this story where she was talking about writing and parenting, and how when you're juggling all these things as a parent, you need to be able to figure out which of your balls are glass and which ones are plastic, right? That every aspect of your life is going to have some things that are really important, that are going to have big long-term consequences. And then you're going to have some things that is a little bit more durable. It's a little bit less important. It's something that can be rolled over to the do list tomorrow or next week or even next month, and not have to worry about that. And the idea here is, when you are trying to figure out what your priorities are, is to know that this isn't a question of like, work is a glass ball that can't be dropped and the kids is plastic. It's knowing that every aspect of your life has some glass balls and some plastic, right? So you're going to have certain things with writing, whether that's like a deadline or something that you promised to do for somebody else. It's going to be a glass ball. It's going to be something that's time sensitive. It's going to have consequences that needs to be done. And the same thing with kids, doctor's appointments, being there for them when they're really going through life struggles, those kinds of things, relationships with people around you, remembering to call your mom, doing date night with your spouse, cleaning. Like when I do my house, especially if I've got something going on with the kids, one of them is sick, or I've got a writing deadline or something, I know there are certain things about my house that have to be done in order for it to feel clean enough for us to live in it comfortably, right? So the floors have to be swept, dishes have to be done. We have to keep on track of laundry so everybody has clean underwear. But there's certain other things that that's not as important to us. If the kids have got a pile of shoes out of my sight underneath the dining room table and I've got a work deadline, I need to focus on the deadline and we can worry about picking up the shoes. And I approach my filling up my time by taking a look at all the different areas of my life, looking at those things that are time sensitive that have big consequences and making sure I get those things done first. And then I have a mid-tier list of things that it would be nice to do, but that can be dropped. Shoes under the table, doing a social media post, a book promo type of thing. And then there's wish list stuff that it would be super nice if I got it done, but that doesn't really matter. If I'm planning on like putting a flower bed out in front of the house and I don't get to that until next month, that's fine. That's a wish list item. I don't want to take time when I'm on a deadline and I have people depending on me, or I've got a sick kid that really needs mom to be out in the front yard doing a flower bed because it's not a time sensitive urgent item. That's for when I have extra time, when I have extra energy. I don't want to prioritize and put that in the wrong place and be doing that. And what I need to be doing is something that's going to have a big consequence on my career or how my kids remember me as a mother. So try to fill up those urgent things into your calendars, into your to-do list first, and worry about the other things in sort of descending order of importance with what time and energy you have left. And you will feel a lot better, I think, about maybe not having everything checked off. All right, so thing number 2 that we're going to look at really quickly here is organization. Organization, I think, is probably the second most important thing. And while I do mean organization in a way that includes like keeping your desk drawers clean and throwing away your trash, I also mean like having routines and systems in place for all the different demands that you have on your time so that those things can go in as smoothly and orderly of a fashion as possible, right? So we are going to talk about some things that I have on routines and systems, and the routines and systems, generally speaking, that tend to work best for me as a person who has been extremely busy at different phases of my motherhood journey. So I do have a schedule for cleaning, which I think is extremely important. I like all of my systems to be flexible, right? So I have used Fly Lady for cleaning because she has you on a rotation. So if it's supposed to be cleaning the bathroom this week and I have a really busy week and I don't get to it as thoroughly as I would like to, I know that that bathroom is going to come back around and it's going to have not been that long since I did it. So it's not going to be completely disgusting in the meantime. So that flexes around things like work deadlines and kid doctor's appointments. So I can just say, hey, didn't get to that this day. I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do the deep cleaning the next time that part of the house comes up on my rotational cleaning schedule. I have had themed dinner days when we were super, super busy. I had every day of the week assigned a different kind of food. You have for Taco Tuesday. Well, we had Taco Tuesday and Italian food Wednesday and crock pot Thursday and soup and sandwich Friday because it let me kind of not have to put as much effort into planning for dinner because I knew exactly what kind of food I was looking for on what day. And it kept me from accidentally making fried chicken twice a week because I forgot I had already bought that. Those kinds of things simplify how much brain power I had to use in order to get something done because I didn't have to think about it a lot. And that applies to any kind of household maintenance stuff that I do. I also like to apply it to my writing where I like to use beat sheets and character sheets and all those kinds of things to kind of get my thoughts in place. I know not everybody is a planner when it comes to your writing, but if you have a system in place, even for your plotting, if you know how that plotting typically tends to work for you, and you have a good plan or system in place for your editing or your revisions, whatever it is that you can do to kind of help so that you know what your process is going to look like, when your writing time is going to be. It helps you to use less of your energy about things. You're not fighting against yourself so much because everything kind of rolls. I like those flexible systems. I like the ones that let me adjust to unpredictable days because especially when you've got small kids, your days are very unpredictable. You need a schedule that's going to flex around doctor's appointments, kids that didn't take their nap that day, or whatever that's going to be. You can start generally by finding one that you like the idea of, and then adjusting that to fit in the areas that it doesn't quite work for you. I know like a lot of your cleaning systems will have specific days for cleaning like your garage or your second bathroom. And I don't have a second bathroom, so I have to use that for a different day. You have to kind of trim those things down and make them fit into your life specifically. And you can't get super, super attached. I know that really kind of sucks, One of the things that I really thought when I was young and looking at the adults that I looked up to was that they kind of seemed to always have their life together. I thought as a young person that meant they had found something and they had discovered a system and they had stuck to that and they had made their life fit into the framework of that system. Whereas what I found as an adult is that I need to make the systems adapt to my life. That a really put together adult is not somebody who has made their lives fit within a rigid framework, but somebody who really has the pulse on the changes that are happening. That you are ready at a moment's notice to make a change when the circumstances in your life are different. You know, if your kids pick up an after school sport, or your baby drops a nap, or your spouse has a new work schedule, or whatever, everything around you kind of has to flex and shift to meet the new demands. So if you were writing during your baby's nap time and now baby no longer takes a nap, you're going to have to look at your schedule and see what you can move around so you can move that writing time to a different time of day and shift something else into the space that used to be when baby took a nap. And the sooner that you are able to look at your life and go like, hey, this area is no longer working for me and I need to make a change, the less time you're going to spend fighting against the system that no longer works for you. And that's going to save you a lot of stress. It's going to save you a lot of heartache, and you're going to have a much shorter period of time where you kind of feel like everything is falling apart because you are able to identify a problem and quickly come up with a solution. And if you're not good at that kind of stuff, I do encourage you to keep trying because it takes time and it takes effort. That is a skill that you can build, but it's good to always keep that in your mind. If you feel like you're struggling more than you normally struggle, look at your life and see if something has recently changed. And if that change has disrupted what was previously a good routine that now needs to be adjusted. I have really made changes to our stuff countless times. The kids are very used to the hey, we have a new routine conversation. I use a lot of charts and boards and stuff, alarms on my phone to keep everybody kind of moving because it's, you know, you get used to one habit and now you've got to change it. But there are tools and stuff that you can use to kind of make that process easier. And that's a great area for you if you kind of feel like if you don't quite understand what I'm talking about to hit me with some questions during the Q&A. Okay, so delegate simply just means you're having an area where you're struggling that you need to reach out and have somebody else who is able to kind of help you with that. I know that for a lot of us, that feels like it may be kind of unattainable. I know that having unsupportive friends and family is one of the things that I was asked about. I don't, my friends and family have been really supportive of me, but I do have some ideas about how you might be able to kind of get around that if just asking for help directly isn't working for you. So when you ask, when you do the friends and family thing, if you ask them, hey, can you watch my kids for me for a couple of hours so I can write, and they're not receptive to that idea, see if there's something else they are willing to do. Because if you can't get your mom in your house to watch kids for you to write, but you can get your mom in your house to help scrub your bathroom because she likes to clean, then let her in your house to scrub your bathroom and then use the time you save not cleaning it to write when she's gone. You may have to be a little bit flexible, you might have to be a little bit creative, but kind of brainstorm some ideas and see if there's some area that they are willing to help you with that you can then take advantage of that freed up time to do something that maybe they weren't as willing to assist you. The borrow thing, I like to is actually more of a trade. If you have a skill, if you have some extra time, see if there's anybody in your life that you can make exchanges with. Maybe you watch a friend's kid for a few hours so she can get her nails done, and she watches your kid for a few hours so that you can do some writing. Or maybe you take turns going over to each other's houses and hanging out while you clean. I know a lot of people, like myself, I have a really hard time doing stuff unless I have kind of like a body double with me to kind of help do things. And that makes things really challenging for me because my husband is at work most of the time. So I would love to have a friend where I went to her house one day a week to help her clean. She comes to my house one day a week to help me clean. That's also a possibility. Again, be creative, see what you can come up with. And then the buy thing, if you have the money and you have the resources to do it, having a housekeeper come in is a wonderful thing. Having a mother's helper come in can be a wonderful thing. If you want to, and you can afford a babysitter so that you can leave the house and go to, a coffee shop or whatever and write, that's great. A mother's helper is probably a cheaper option usually because you stay at home and you get a teenager or somebody to come in and kind of help distract the kids, feed them lunch, do whatever, so that you can be nearby, but still not responsible as much for the chores and things, which is really great if you just don't have a supportive spouse or you're a single mom or your spouse just works a lot, is gone a lot, those kinds of things. So and again, that's more of a budget friendly option. I think the trick here is that you have to be creative about how you can get help, and that you have to be willing to take what help you can get and know that even a little bit is better than nothing. You know, it can help to take some of the pressure off of you and give you at least the mental um, capacity to brainstorm. Because when you really feel like you're drowning and you're spending every minute just kind of trying to keep up on your responsibilities, it makes it really hard to have the time to even think about how to get out of it. So take the help you can get, let it ease a little bit of the burden off of you, and use some of that time to kind of think about how you can get more, build some momentum to that. Okay, so the last part of our actual solutions portion of the presentation is going to be self-care. Now, I know that everybody knows self-care is important, but it is so, so tempting as a mom to put yourself kind of on the back burner. And again, I'm going to give you that constant reminder that, you know, when there's an emergency on an airplane and the oxygen masks drop down, they tell you to put your own mask on first, right? And it seems like an absolutely horrible thing to do, but if you lose consciousness, you cannot help the people around you, right? You have to take care of yourself. You have to refill your creative well and rest and eat healthy and go to the doctor and drink your water so that you can show up as your best self for your writing career and so that you can show up as the best self for your self-care has kind of gotten a bad rap as being this thing where it's just, you know, buying bath bombs and eating chocolates. And while that can be an important part of self-care, you know, you want to have rest, you want to have a downtime just to watch TV and play on your phone, read your books, you know, be relaxed, because that is actually important. But self-care is not just indulgence. It's knowing yourself, it's knowing when you need a break, it's knowing when you don't feel well, and being willing to address those things. Take yourself to the doctor, take yourself to bed if you need sleep, um, take a break when you feel like you're overwhelmed. I know when you have small kids that can be really, really challenging, but do the best you can to make sure that you are also looking after yourself when you are planning all of your systems and your routines and how things are going to work for you. You need to plan time in there, to do that little kind of counterproductive feeling thing where you put yourself first and give yourself time to breathe and time to think so that you don't end up burnt out and unable to take care of yourself and or anybody else. Your kids are depending on you to show up for them, and in order to do that, you have to make sure that you're doing that difficult self. Okay, so our last section of the presentation here is going to be our looking forward section. We're going to look at things that we can do now or attitudes that we can change now that is going to make a big difference for us going forward. I'm hoping that the second section where we talked about solutions and stuff will give you an idea of areas where you can focus to give you immediate results, which is what you're looking for when you're drowning, right? You're looking for stuff that you can do right now to implement change in the very near future. These are more like things that you can do now to kind of be looking forward over the next year or 5 or 10 years where you want to see long-term bigger results on things, that will be really good for you, especially if you've got small kids and they're still in the process of growing, or you're going through the bigger changes of realizing that your kids are moving out and stuff, and you still have struggles. So we're going to look at some of that stuff because that's important. I think we don't want to just be doing triage on things that are happening right now. We want to be looking towards our future and really planning for what's best for us over the course of time as our lives continue to change and we experience new. So we've got quite a few things that I want to go over on our looking forward area here, but we're going to touch on each of them pretty briefly because I think this would be a good idea for the Q&A, but I also think there's just way more here than I'd be able to comfortably cover in the time that we have. So parenting, I kind of was a little bit nervous about doing this one because everybody has their own philosophies, but I will say that regardless of where you're at in your journey with your kids or how old they are, it's never too late to invest in that relationship. It's never too late to try to do things differently if you feel like you're struggling or they're struggling. And anything that you do to invest now is going to help pay off later, especially if you've got little kids. The biggest things that I've done with my kids that I think have been helpful now that I'm seeing them become grown people, investments that I feel like was really worth it, was we created an atmosphere of respect and communication, where the kids felt comfortable talking to me about almost anything. I asked them to respect me by demonstrating respect for them. We spend a lot of quality time together. This is really tempting when you're homeschooling to think they're with you all the time, so you don't necessarily have to worry about how to connect with them, and that's just not true. No matter how much time you spend with them, if some of that time is not spent actively paying attention to them and participating in their interests, you're going to feel that later when you're excluded from their lives as an adult. I spend a lot of time watching anime and listening to songs and watching videos and doing all kinds of things that are important to my kids, and they like showing me this. Enjoy showing me their interest and sharing those things with me now that they're big because I spent a lot of time listening to them when they were small. I've taught them age appropriate boundaries, which means that I respect their right to privacy and their need to get stuff done. And now that they're bigger, they respect the same for me. I can tell them, hey, I've got a thing that I've got to do right now. I'm going to need 20 or 30 minutes for you guys to kind of do your own thing and kind of leave me alone and let me get done what I need to get done. And they respect that boundary because I've taught them to be able to ask for their needs and expect the people around them to listen. So there's lots of things that you can do to invest in your kids that will make your life easier as they get bigger. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you really feel like you're struggling with that, there are really great parenting resources, gentle parenting resources that can show you how to be a gentle, connected parent without being a permissive parent. It's definitely worth your time to invest in those. We've talked a lot about perfectionism already, but I want to go once again remind you that perfectionism is the enemy. It really will keep you from being able to do the good enough thing. I used to really struggle with saying I couldn't go into the kitchen and make it spotless, so I might as well not bother doing it right now, when I could have used that time to go in and sweep the floor and do dishes and improve the room by 80%, which would have been a much bigger blessing for myself and my family than ignoring the problem because I couldn't do it all right now at this time. So especially when you're a parent, you've got kids, you're going to have messes. You got to learn how to embrace that mess and embrace the season that you're in and let go of your fear of being perceived as not good enough because it's not. Seasonality, I like to look at this one as recognizing that you are in different seasons can really take the pressure off of you emotionally to try to be able to do everything right now. When my kids were young and they were small, my life was about my kids. And I used to worry really hard about all the things that I wasn't doing because I wasn't writing, I wasn't traveling, I wasn't doing any of these things with the goals that I really had for myself. But now that my kids are bigger, I have so much more time to do those things. And I realized when they were young, I was stressed out about never doing stuff because I pictured my life forever being the way that it was right then. With my kids being that demanding and having that much need for my time. And that's just simply not the way that it is. If you're having an illness or a marital problem or a period of high financial stress or small kids or you're caretaking for your parents, there's lots and lots of things that can make you feel like your life is really hard, and we can get tempted to kind of wallow in that and feel like because it's hard now, it's going to be hard forever. And we have to remind ourselves that we are going to be dealing with seasons of difficulty in life, and that for the most part, those are things that are going to pass, and your life is going to look different a year from now or 5 years from now. So it's okay to just focus on getting through that hard time without worrying about all the things that you're missing out on, because you will have time for those things later. And when I say most, I do mean most, because if we move on to our challenges section down here, this is for things that are a little bit more permanent. You may have, a permanently high needs child. You may find that you deal with chronic illness or mental health or neurodivergency in yourself. You may find that there's just certain things in your life that are difficult now and that you expect to continue to be difficult for a long time or possibly forever. I know with my anxiety that's something that I'm going to deal with for the rest of my life. It's not ever going to magically go away or get completely better. I have learned to manage it and I have learned to cope with it, but I'm never going to be completely free of that difficulty in my life. And the thing that I'm going to say about this is that it's okay to be mad about that. It's okay to be sad about the things that you don't think you're going to be able to do. There are sometimes permanent limitations on what we can do. And it's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel bad about that. I used to beat myself up a lot about being angry about the things in my life that I couldn't change. And I feel like a much freer person when I just gave into it and said, yeah, it's okay for me to grieve the fact that there's things I won't be able to do. And to be disappointed. It doesn't make me a bad person to be disappointed. There are things that I won't realistically ever be able to achieve. That's normal. It's normal to feel that way. It does not make me a bad person. The next thing we're going to look at is friendships. I put this one next to the challenges thing because I think it's really important if you do have a permanent sort of challenge or a long-term challenge that you are able to make friends. I mean, I highly recommend making writer friends because they have just a wealth of knowledge and shared experiences, but friends of any kind, especially if you don't feel like you have a supportive family or you have special and unique challenges. Finding friends can be a wonderful thing. You can make friends, in person by doing classes or meetups for specific activities or support groups for those challenges that you have. Or you can make friends online. You can do social media. I've made a lot of my friends on social media by hanging out in writing spaces or fandom spaces. If you have any kind of special interest, look for places where people meet up online to talk about that. Find the people that you like and then, see if you can get yourself into a group chat or a Discord server or something. I have made long-term lasting friendships by doing those things. And every single one of them has improved my life greatly. The more support that you have, the better off you're going to be. So that's the thing. It takes time. It's kind of like dating. Not every person that you think, hey, I might like to be friends with them, actually turns out to be a good friend. So try lots of different things, be persistent and consistent about showing up. And that's definitely worth your time and energy as a long-term investment. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the concept of resilience, because I know that the biggest difference between people who are successful and people who are not is simply the ability to take a hit, to take a rejection, dust yourself off, get back up and keep going. Especially in publishing, because we all know that it can be an extremely brutal thing with so many rejections. You've got to build that skill, developing that thicker skin, learning how to cope with those negative emotions so that you can continue to try. I like to tell people my advice for this is to be stubborn about your methods, but stubborn about your goals and flexible about your methods. Because that's really what it is. You want to know where you're going. You want to make a plan that will take you in the direction of that goal, but know that if it's this particular avenue isn't taking you there, it's okay to try something else. Go at it from a different direction, try it from a different way, brainstorm a different solution, and just keep going on that until you get where it is that you're trying to go. You really thick skin and flexible methods is going to be the thing that's going to get you there almost every single time. And it's worth investing in the skill of learning how to be more resilient, because that's going to be the thing that takes you to the place where you are trying to go, or whether that's a parenting goal or a writing goal, or probably both. That is probably the number one skill that I would recommend investing in for yourself. All right, and thank you all very much for participating in my presentation. This is going to be it for me. Please stick around for the question and answer section. And if there's any place in here where I lost you, or you'd like more specific examples that maybe have to do with the circumstances that you are currently dealing with, please feel free to ask. I may not know the answers, but I might have some advice for how to go about finding them. And thank you all so much. This is my first WriteHive presentation, so I'm glad you guys showed up.